lot about in your book. One thing that really resonated with me was this concept of humanity having a primary wound that we're all experiencing, and that this primary wound creates a divide between our head and our body and our thinking and our feeling, and that actually changes the framework and how we experience reality. And it was just phenomenal for me in the workshop when some of the exercises bringing us back to this place of feeling every single moment anchored in the present moment and so attuned to the energies around us and the senses so alive. Like my hairs are standing up just thinking about it. And I know that experience will live on with me for the rest of my life. And your workshop, you allowed us to start becoming aware of the patterns of tension, of the patterns that we hold in our body that keep us in our heads, and patterns that have been invisible to us our whole lives because we haven't had that separation from our culture, as you said. It's just, we're born into it, our parents did it, we're taught that way at school, we're just taught to view the world through the framework of the head. And so this creates, as you say, all this fragmented sort of perception of the world, which can create so many issues and distortions, and we focus on all the individual issues, thinking that if I just fix this area of my life, I'll be whole, or if I just fix that area of my life, I'll be whole. Whereas for me, it's just so amazing having this one focus of coming back into this harmony of coming back into my own wholeness by bridging these two, this major sort of schism, as you call it. And it's just been absolutely profound. Like, I think it's without, without sort of making you embarrassed, it's just genius, I think. So I would love for you to elaborate a bit more on this primary wound and how it affects us.
Yeah, it's the wound. It's not a wound in humanity so much as in our culture. It's a wound. Our culture gives us messaging in so many ways. The head should be in charge. The head will sort it out. The body is a vehicle. The body should be put in order by the head. And what happens, as a child in school, you sit at your desk and your body's intelligence, your body's energy will get you in trouble unless you actively suppress it. And you're instructed to fill your head with this knowledge dissociated from the body. It's just abstract knowledge, and with that you will achieve success. And you think about that lesson, that primary lesson. When you look at education, that is what it's teaching. As well as arithmetic and spelling, that is the primary lesson it's teaching. And it gets you, at the age of 5, and it has you every year, like 9-10 months of the year until you're 16, 17, 18. And you learn to separate your thinking from your being, and you buy in to this very strange notion that you can think more clearly with a small portion of your intelligence than you can with the whole of your intelligence, or the whole of your being. And only now research is actually being done that demonstrates that the whole of your being is vastly more attuned to reality, that there is this preconscious or unconscious layer manifest through the body that attunes to cues too subtle for the conscious mind even to notice, but it registers them. So scientifically it's an error, let alone an error for our culture on a grand scale.
And you think about the implication of that for young children, as young as 5 years old, and they live through the body. and then they go to school, and the body is something that we're taught to suppress. And then as children get a bit older, based on our culture, it becomes, and I'm speaking particularly for young women with this work, is the conditioning all around that to conquer the body and manipulate the body, and the head, wills the body into submission, and that just exacerbates this wound, and it's just frightening, and I guess that's why this work is so important, because we can get so lost up in our head, and disconnected from our body because of our culture.
And it breeds addiction.
Yeah.
And the reason it breeds addiction is because when your thinking dissociates from your being, you leave this hole. Mm-hmm. Where the connection with your being is what connects you with the world and brings you into your wholeness, and then there's this hole in the self that needs filling.
Yes.
And it you can fill it with food, with distractions, with gambling, with drink, with drugs, there are any number of ways, and with control. Right? You can try to assert control over that emptiness, because our culture tells you control is what you need. And even you think about self-mastery. What a lovely idea that is, until you realize, now let's see, if the self is mastering the self is making a slave of the self. There is no self-mastery without self-enslavement. And it's such a different thing, the mastery that enables you to surrender to the present and be nourished by it and guided by it.